Hi, and welcome everyone. My name is Ashley Proctor, and I run Creative Blueprint and Coworking Canada. But today I am here on behalf of the Coworking Idea Project, which is an international alliance of coworking consultants, coworking alliances, operators, organizations, and people who are committed to making the coworking industry more inclusive, more diverse, more equitable, and more accessible. And each month we ask a guest facilitator to come and issue a challenge to the co-working world. And this challenge can be used in your own organizations, in your co-working spaces, or in your own work. And then we come back at the end of the month to discuss the challenge and all the things that we've learned and have opportunities to do a Q&A with the guest facilitator. So this month we've invited Tash to talk to us about the upcoming IDEA handbook. And I'm going to hand it over to Tash to introduce herself and talk a bit more about this really exciting resource for the co-working community. Welcome.
Hi, it's so good to be back. So I'm now Tash Costa Thomas. I got married since the last time I was here. So pronouns are she, her. I'm based in the UK. I am known as the Director of Diversity and Inclusion for the European Co-working Assembly. I'm also a diversity and inclusion consultant full-time, where I help organizations in lots of different industries and fields in terms of either maybe developing their strategies, design and delivery of specific training, as well as auditing, running focus groups, all the fun stuff that comes under the umbrella of diversity and inclusion. As well as running a platform with my wife, which is an LGBTQ plus positive visibility blog known as Breaking the Distance. So lots of things under the umbrella. And I've had the honor, I guess, of actually designing and authoring the ECA and IDEA handbook, which is essentially a guide for co-working spaces in how to take on diversity and inclusion within their spaces. It's a really big topic. And it can sometimes feel very overwhelming as to how to start the conversation, what you need to be thinking about. There's so many different identities out there. And many of the spaces that are obviously operating are much smaller. There are bigger spaces, but there are also lots of spaces that are smaller with not so much resource. So this is definitely aimed at being that support, essentially.
Yeah, it's actually really exciting to see everything come together after so long of talking about how this resource could be of a benefit. And there are so many different pieces that we need to pull together as business operators. It can be really overwhelming to tackle a topic as big as this. And so I really appreciate how you're breaking it down for folks. So maybe you could walk us through what that resource will look like and how the different sort of sections lead us through making this work manageable.
Yeah, absolutely. So I felt it's really important for this to be as accessible as possible, not just in the physical sense of, whether it comes in audio form or written form, but actually, if you are new to this topic entirely, that it doesn't feel like this big overwhelm. So we've kind of broken it down, or I've broken it down into sections that can be taken at pace, whatever pace is right for you and your space and your community. So section 1 is all around more so education, right? Understanding what even is diversity and inclusion, why is it important, and what does it look like in co-working? Generally, a lot of the conversation around this topic is aimed at organizations and corporate sector, which have this very sort of structured way of operating, right? We have a group of people who come into an office, there's a HR department, there's a hiring team, and we all work to one goal. And we all know that co-working doesn't look like that necessarily, right? It's lots of different people from different walks of life navigating one space together. So also transferring this conversation to co-working was very important in section 1 to understand what it looks like in these communities. Section 2 is about understanding where you are and the benchmark for where you are right now, and to be really open and honest about that. It's okay if this is the first time you're thinking about it, but let's get that and let's understand and be transparent about that. So it's looking at auditing and breaking auditing down into manageable chunks. Auditing, even for myself, I love diversity and inclusion, but auditing is like, oh, it's that big scary monster that sounds like maths. So I wanted to make it understandable and easy to kind of follow bit by bit. And then this leads us into implementation. And this is really like a hand guide in, you know, how do you build a diversity statement? What's in that statement? Why is it important? How do we outline a strategy, and how do we share that with our wider community? As well as looking at probably one of the biggest aspects of this area is hiring. And to think about hiring both your staff and your team that you work with, but also that's reflected in membership. You know, the same questions that we ask in hiring staff are the same questions that we ask in building our membership. You know, where are we advertising? Who are we targeting? Where is our outreach? We can ask those questions in both spaces. So we really delve into what the hiring process is and what the membership process is for people. And then this leads us nicely into resources. So this topic, as we said, is very, very broad. So a team has come together to put together a list of, well, a working list of resources that are broken down into, you know, whether it's podcasts, books, YouTube videos, blog posts, whichever is your kind of favored medium, and also different topics. So anti-racism, allyship, LGBTQ awareness, general diversity and inclusion, but it's kind of a resource for you to go to and tap into as and when, and just to build up your own knowledge. And as I said, this is a working resource, so it will be continue to be added to as more information and more stories come out.
This is amazing. I'm so thrilled that this is finally happening. I'm really grateful that it's you that's pulling everything together. I know it's going to be fantastic. So we're going to get our hands on this in the fall at some point. But I'm also wondering if you could just let us know a little bit about the group that's pulling all of this together. I know this is you and your work, but you're being supported by the ECA. Could you talk a bit about them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been amazing to have so much support from European Co-working Assembly, and they've definitely been the drivers in kind of understanding this is a challenge that we face as a community, and what can we do to kind of support that. And actually the way that we've worked and pulled this together as a collective has been a representation of co-working in of itself, right? It's a group of people who are passionate about a particular project. We all have a different skill set. Let's all come together to make this happen. And I think that that's such a beautiful thing, that we've created this working guide for diversity and inclusion, but it's been created in the most diverse, inclusive and equitable way, which is kind of a really beautiful synergy.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think there's a real potential for co-working as well, to sort of bring these ideas forward, to bring the essential work that you're doing and others are doing in this area into mainstream office culture. We're rebuilding sort of the broken offices of the past.
Absolutely.
And if we can rebuild them while we're imagining this incredible, equitable, diverse, inclusive, and accessible future, that's a really exciting place. I get goosebumps thinking about you know, what kind of a world that might be. So thank you for your contributions to the project, to co-working, to your work in the world, but also to the IDEA project. I want to note before we leave that you were here right at the beginning, when we weren't sure if people would pay attention.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I remember.
In the very first video. So 18 months now we've been issuing IDEA challenges. And so thank you for taking the leap of faith with us all that time ago. But yeah, it's been a real pleasure working with you and to get to see you again here. And for those who are following along, we'll be hosting a conversation on the last Wednesday of the month, as we always do. So if you have questions or if you want to dive a bit deeper on any of these topics, you can come and speak with Tash then. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we wrap up?
I guess it was just kind of around this month's challenge, obviously being, I want it to be the start of this conversation, right? So it's very much focusing, getting you used to a little bit of research, a little bit of delving in, and also just kind of getting that collective impetus and drive to want to do better. So, you know, it's all around seeing who is doing well so far, right? And what things are like, oh, that space is really inclusive. Why do I feel that way? Asking those questions to kind of get those creative juices flowing going forward. So actually, I'm really excited when we come to that final conversation to hear what you've discovered, to hear all these amazing events that are happening, and to really, you know, put other people up on a pedestal and say, you know, they're doing a really great job. Let's all pay attention to that and applaud that. because I think it's really important that we celebrate what we're doing well. And so often in this topic, it's always about, oh, this organization didn't do this, these people aren't doing this. And actually, it's really important that we turn the focus also to, wow, that's a great example of ... So yeah, this is all about giving shout outs this month. Absolutely.
That's great. I think it's a perfect challenge for summer as well, also to keep it front of mind and get us ready for all the work we're about to do in the fall. So thank you for this month's challenge. And for everyone watching, you can go to coworkingidea.org and follow along in the blog post. And you can also download a PDF to help walk you through this month's challenge. And we'll meet together at the end of the month to discuss how it went for you. So thanks everyone for being here. And thanks Tash for issuing this month's challenge and for your work on the IDEA handbook.
Thank you.